Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Movesets video. Today's video is going to be all about Wormadam-Trash form, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, abilities, and stats. So to start things off, Wormadam-Trash is a Bug Steel type Pokemon introduced in a Generation 4 as one of the 4 possible final forms of the Pokemon Burmy. And this one has access to 2 abilities, the first of which being Anticipation, which is an ability that tells you if your opponent is packing a super effective move, which is great in particular for this Pokemon because being a Bug Steel type, it only has one weakness, which is a 4 times weakness to Fire type moves, essentially allowing you an easy way to predict what your opponent might go for and allowing you to switch in an appropriate counter to the potential Fire type move. Additionally though, this Pokemon also gets the Overcoat ability, which is generally the preferred ability to use, as it makes you immune to chip damage from weather-related effects such as hail, and also makes it so that this Pokemon is unaffected by powder-like moves such as Sleep Powder, Spore, and Stun Spore. But as for its stats, this Pokemon kind of is defensive if you want to think of it that way, with base 60 HP, base 95 defense, and 95 special defense, with really good physical and special defense, but the 60 HP stat really holding it back from being a really effective wall. Still though, it is able to be used as a pretty decent wall in the lower tiers where it is mostly viable. Offensively though, it has base 69 physical and special attack, meaning that it's pretty below average in that department as well, so it's not going to be doing a ton of damage without proper setup maybe, or a ton of investment. And lastly, this Pokemon has a fairly low base 36 speed, which makes it fairly slow on the battlefield, but an excellent user of the move Gyro Ball, which it does get access to. Additionally though, this Pokemon, interestingly enough, is actually untiered currently, because it is not really used ever. So you'll probably most likely be using this Pokemon in the ZU or PU tier. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the first moveset that I have for you in this video for this Pokemon. So for this first moveset, we're going to be using Wormadam as a Stealth Rock setter for your team, which in general is the best way to use it to get the most out of it and support your team throughout the battle. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Sassy Nature to increase its special defense but lower its speed stat, or a Calm Nature to increase its special defense but lower its physical attack stat. And then for the ability, going with Overcoat. As for the EVs, we're going to be putting 252 EVs into its HP and its special defense to run a very bulky specially defensive set, and put the remainder 4 EVs into its defense just to make that 1 point higher. And theoretically, you could run this Pokemon physically defensive instead of specially defensive, but I found a lot more success with the specially defensive set, so I would encourage you to do the same. But as for the moves, the first one obviously is going to be Stealth Rock to allow us to set up those really important entry hazards on our opponent's side of the field to make it so that they take damage every single time they switch in, which in general is going to be the most damage that you're going to be getting out of Wormadam, basically by having your opponent switch into it. But in addition, this Pokemon can also run one attacking move, the best option generally being Gyro Ball in combination with the Sassy Nature because it's going to be the most powerful attack you have at your disposal. But if you want to run a special attack instead, Flash Cannon and Bug Buzz are definitely the options to go with. You also theoretically could run something like Rock Tomb to lower your opponent's speed for that extra utility, but it's not quite as useful. But in addition to this, we're also going to be running Toxic to allow us to status our opponent and make it so that they take increased damage at the end of every turn. And then for the last move, either running Rest to give this Pokemon an option for some recovery, Protect as a way to potentially stall out some toxic turns, Sucker Punch as a way to allow this Pokemon to have a priority move that can be very useful for picking off opponents that already are at a lowered range of health, or even running Metal Burst on this Pokemon to allow it to take advantage of its low speed and hopefully deal a lot of damage back at its opponents after it has taken a pretty strong hit. But for the item on the set, we're either going to be running Leftovers as the most standard option to allow it to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, a Chesto Berry to allow it a free wake up from when it uses Rest if you go with that move option, or even a Rocky Helmet to allow this Pokemon to dish out a little bit more chip damage to its opponents when it is attacked by a physical contact move, or something, like Grass Knot, which also happens to make contact with you. But either way, this Pokemon is generally going to be useful mostly by running this particular set because it gives it a very all-around way of being a lead that sets up hazards for your team. As for this next moveset, we're going to be running Wormadam kind of like a lead like the previous set, but with a different intention in mind with the moves that we're selecting. So again though, we're going to be going with the same specially defensive EV spread and the Calm Nature just like before to allow this Pokemon to have its maximum special bulk possible as well as also using the overcoat ability, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second on how that can also work into this set. But for the moves, again, we're going to be running Stealth Rock just to allow us to set up those all-important hazards on our opponent's side of the field. But if you do have something else on your team that can set up Stealth Rock, you may also want to consider running something like Sucker Punch, because it does give this Pokemon priority, and it will allow it to potentially pick off a weakened opponent, which can be very handy. But for the moves on this set, aside from Stealth Rock, we have Protect, Toxic, and Infestation that are basically designed to allow this Pokemon to deal damage at the end of every turn in increasing amounts while making it so that your opponent is unable to switch out. And because you have access to Protect, which you can use successfully every other turn, you're basically going to be stalling for that chip damage caused by Infestation and Toxic for free every other turn, which is amazing for this Pokemon because, like I said before, it doesn't really have a super reliable way of dealing damage to its opponents. So this can be a way of allowing Wormadam to be a little bit better at taking down something on your opponent's side of the field than the previous set, whereas the previous set can kind of work a little bit better on a turn-by-turn basis because you're using an attacking move like Gyro Ball, Flash Cannon, or Bug Buzz, and you also have access to the recovery, making use of something like Rest, for example, like I showed before. But all of these moves in combination with each other essentially allow Wormadam to do a lot of damage to its opponents for free, because it's essentially just there to sit in, take a hit, protect, and just make it so that your opponent cannot switch out and is just constantly taking increased damage. The other great thing about the set is we're also going to be running Leftovers as its item to heal you a little bit at the end of every turn, which is going to work amazingly in combination with Protect, because you'll essentially get a free turn of Leftovers when you make use of this move. So overall, this is just an alternative way to kind of run a stealth rocking Wormadam that can be equally as effective, but for different reasons. And additionally, I should note this before I move on, is that because you're using the Overcoat ability, this Pokemon won't take damage from something like Hail, and there are two Hail setters in PU that are pretty commonly used in the form of Aurorus and Abomasnow, and if you use those Pokemon in combination with this set, your opponent will also be taking that additional Hail damage at the end of every turn, which can be amazing when it stacks up with the Toxic and Infestation damage as well. Finally, for the last moveset of this video, we're going to be running Wormadam as a bulky setup attacker. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Bold Nature to increase its physical defense but lower its physical attack, going with the Overcoat ability again, and this time a physically defensive EV spread, which will include 252 EVs into its HP stat, 252 EVs into its defense stat, and 4 into its special attack. As for the moves, on this set, the first one that we're going to be going with is Quiver Dance, which is going to be boosting our special attack, our special defense, and speed by 1 stage every single time we go with it. And the cool thing about this move in particular is that it's kind of filling in all the holes of this set in particular. We're running it physically defensive, and we're going to be trying to deal damage, so we're boosting our attack, we're boosting our other defensive stat, and we're making it a little bit faster, which Wormadam typically isn't seen as being. Granted, you're going to need like 3 or 4 boosts into your speed stat for this thing to start really outspeeding stuff, but for the most part, this Pokemon might be able to do that because it's going to be pretty bulky while doing so. So in order to start dealing damage, we're going to be running either Flash Cannon as our main Steel Stab type attack, or Bug Buzz as our main Bug Stab type attack. And if you are worried a little bit about maybe the bulletproof or the soundproof ability, because technically one of these moves is going to be walled by either of those abilities, you could theoretically run something like Mirror Shot, which has that added utility of lowering your opponent's accuracy potentially, or run something along the lines of Signal Beam for your Bug Stab, because that also has a chance to confuse and it isn't blocked by an ability. But generally, Flash Cannon and Bug Buzz are going to do the trick. Next though, because this Pokemon doesn't have any reliable recovery outside of this move, we're going to be running Rest to allow it to heal all of its HP up and getting rid of any negative statuses in the form of putting it to sleep. Now this is great because obviously you're going to be taking damage while you try to set up, so Rest can be great for allowing you to sustain yourself for a long time while you attempt to deal damage to your opponents through your setup and then your attacking move. And for the last move on the set, we can either run Sleep Talk to run a Rest Talk type set with Quiver Dance, which can be very effective in allowing this Pokemon to be damaging even while it's asleep. But if you do want to run an alternate option here, you could also go with Iron Defense, which is going to allow this Pokemon to boost its physical defense stat by 2 stages, which is then going to make it even more bulky in combination with the special defense boost that you're getting from Quiver Dance. So both options can be very useful. It's really personal preference here. But for your item, you're generally going to want to go with Leftovers to allow it to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, but a Chesto Berry can be useful as well for that instant wake up after using Rest if going with the Iron Defense move in your 4th move slot. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video on Wormadam. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all are all happy to see me back uploading again, as it's been like 8 months since I last put out a video. So as always, everybody, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.